A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 151st episode of Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. Over 20 months ago, in April 2020, when the pandemic had just set in and schools had closed down, we at Notebook felt it was our duty to set up a platform for educators to connect meaningfully on discussing problems they were facing with the rising need of digital education and online learning and arrive at common solutions. Today, 150 episodes later, this platform has grown much bigger than we could have ever anticipated, all thanks to your love and support. We have discussed extremely curricular topics here like digital learning and NEP and assessments, extracurricular topics like sports and theatre, topics like school finance, and even evolved topics like mental health. In our last session, we discussed the strategies and various aspects of having disengaged students in the classroom. In many ways, today we are looking at the other end of the spectrum, the extraordinary ones. And we don't mean it just academically. As esteemed educators with years of experience, you have the ability to spot extraordinary talent very early on. Once you do, it puts you in an unenviable position where you are faced with the difficult choice of either jeopardizing the rest of the class by giving this child the special attention and concessions that she or he deserves in order to really hone the talent, or keep to the path for the greater good and run the risk of not giving the talent its place in the sun. Today, we will fall back upon the decades of experience of our esteemed speakers and panelists to learn how to handle this situation better. Before I introduce our first speaker today, in case you're wondering who these people on your screen are, the top row, center, is Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The middle row, from left to right, Amitabh Bachchan, Saina Nehwal, Shreya Ghoshal, and Sunil Gavaskar. The bottom row, from left to right, Sundar Pichai, Virat Kohli, Indira Gandhi, and Indra Nooyi. To speak on this topic, ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Barrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Barrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and we at Notebook are privileged to have Mr. Barrett as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Subhayo, for that introduction, and a very good evening to you, Achin, and everyone at the office, as well as our esteemed panelists today, who I look forward to hearing from. When I was in school, Shakuntala Devi, the maths wizard, visited us. And for about 2 hours, she held us in raptures. That was my first glimpse of what is an extraordinary talent. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I wondered whether people were born with this or did they acquire it. At the end of the day, I feel that is a bit of both. I think it's a lot of you're born with it, like Sachin was born with a gift of timing, but there was also hard work put in. There's a lot of practice and hard work that people don't realize. So in the school I worked in for many years, we had a boy who was always late for everything, never involved himself in sport, was very unkempt, tardy, untidy. His laces were not put. He was the prefect's nightmare and the biggest problem for teachers. All he wanted to do was to read astrophysics. He knew more than any of his teachers about physics, much, much above the normal. To cut a long story short, he walked into Princeton University and is now pursuing postdoctoral research because he looks into dark space. He just wants to look into astro space, things that I will never be able to understand. He had to follow his own path. The school had to give him special sanction. We had to overlook his idiosyncrasies. I've had a student who could run 400 meters in under 50 seconds, 49 seconds, when he was in class 8. He went on to represent India in the SARC Games against Sri Lanka. I had a maths prodigy in Delhi who could solve IIT papers in class 9. And when he finally did the ISC maths paper, He finished it in 1.5 hours, walked out smiling, and said what a joke this paper was, while the rest of his class was struggling to finish in 3 hours. I had a boy in school who knew all about dinosaurs. He had written books on dinosaurs, and he just had one passion: dinosaurs, nothing else. And today he's pursuing postdoctoral research in paleontology, heavily sponsored and financed in a university in the US. We had another student who was an economics wizard who wrote a textbook on the BA economics, which he sold while in the first year at college at Delhi University. And his book sold like hotcakes because he could understand what a student wanted. We had a piano virtuoso who had done his grade 8 Trinity College exam in the piano while he was in class 10. And by the time he got to class 11 and 12, he had done the LTCL and the ATCLs, which were the associate and licentiate levels of the Trinity College of Music. And he was allowed by our school to go and travel and perform and give concerts all over the world. A shooter in class 8 who represented India, had special coaching, had special leave being sanctioned. Of course, we have the Vikram Seths and Amitabh Ghosh's who showed immense talent very early in their lives. If one reads the early Doon School weeklies and the magazines, you could see that they were far above the teachers that ever taught them. Their use of language was spectacular. They used language in a way that no one could imagine, like a painter uses paintbrush. There are many stories, and every teacher on this panel will be able to, narrate his own set of stories. But these are above normal children. These are gifted children born with natural abilities, well above the average. Now, children can be gifted in any area of ability. They can also be gifted in more than one area. For example, a child may be gifted creatively and intellectually, or they might have above average physical coordination and memory, or more social and emotional maturity than other children of their age. Children can be gifted at different levels too. There are some gifted children who have more advanced abilities than others, and some children who have disabilities. For example, a child who is intellectually gifted but also might have autism or hearing loss. Being gifted often runs in families, and gifted children are found in all cultures and all types of families. These students have the capacity for talent, creativity, and innovative ideas. They could be our future Einsteins. They will do this only if we support them to learn in an appropriate way. They are more likely to be overlooked and sometimes even ignored in normal schools. We often marvel at their ability to store large amounts of information in memory. They can spell words correctly and unscramble complex anagrams. Gifted students often point to a clear mismatch between how they prefer to learn and how they are actually taught. And while some gifted students are good academically in their schools, others sometimes are not very good at their academics. Many of the more creative people this world has known are twice exceptional. This includes scientists such as Einstein, artists like Van Gogh, authors and politicians. Their achievements are one reason we are interested in gifted learning. They have the potential to contribute significantly to our world and change how we live. These are the innovators of the future. They give us big ideas, possibilities, and options. We describe their achievements, discoveries, and creations as a talent. Now, these talented outcomes are not random, lucky, or accidental. Instead, they come from a particular way of knowing their world and thinking about it. A talented footballer, Beckham, for example, sees moves and possibilities their opponents don't see. Their spatial ability into making passes through gaps are far beyond the normal kid. They can think, plan, and act differently. What they do is more than what the coach has trained them to do. People learn by converting information to knowledge. They may elaborate, restructure, and reorganize it in various ways. Giftedness, in my view, is a capacity to learn in more advanced ways. First of all, these students learn faster. In a given period, they learn more than their regular learning peers. They form a more elaborate and differentiated knowledge of a topic that helps them interpret more information at a time. Also, they're more likely to draw conclusions from evidence and reasoning rather than from explicit statements. Now, you can be verbally gifted. Language, like I mentioned, Vikram said, their use of words, their use of language, they're visually and spatially gifted students. These are the great designers, photographers, interior decorators, sculptors, architects, artisans of the world. They think laterally. They're totally different to the verbally gifted types. Then you have the mathematically and the numerically gifted people like Shakuntala Devi. Now, giftedness can come in many forms. Like you can have an academic gift, a leadership gift, a social issue gift, technology, the arts, music, for example, the ability to make friends, business skills, physical skills like sport. So there are many gifts. And of course, most gifted children are able to concentrate and focus well on tasks, be intently curious, and ask difficult questions, different questions. They learn quickly, they have an extremely good memory, and they are very imaginative and creative. And most of them have very advanced speech. Now, all teachers in schools would have experienced these type of people. But what should be done for these kids? Certainly keeping them in a normal school would be the wrong thing. You need special schools where these children will flourish. Otherwise, their progress would be impeded. As Sabayu mentioned in his introduction, these children have to be spotted early. And it takes a special teacher, especially the school counselor and the special educated teacher come into this. They need to be spotted early. Often these students do not shine in normal academic classes. However, some of them do. Now, they thrive and excel where they have the opportunity to show their advanced thinking. And if not handled well, they become disengaged, bored, troublesome. Now, they also are, don't forget, because they are frustrated and restricted in a normal class, they can be disruptive. They can have disciplinary problems. They ask questions that are quirky. They're not the most comfortable with teachers sometimes. Often a sports coach and a teacher can throw up his arms in absolute frustration because these children are a threat to the normal way of doing things. Also, I think the parents of these children have to be taken on board because sometimes parents don't want gifted children. They want to have a normal good kid who will get married and have a TV and have a family. Now, they also have to play a key role in helping to understand that their children are different, their child is different. They have to value their interpretation and achievement and see how they can best bring it to fruition. Now, I had a student in my house from Bihar, normal family, both were doctors. They spent half their time taking out bullets of victims who were being shot at in the wild west of Bihar. And this boy showed exceptional talent in chemistry, physics, and maths. And we at that time in school had an English teacher who was on exchange from a top school in London called the Westminster School. And he I have never seen a brain like this man. Anyway, the parents were cajoled, talked to, enticed to spend some money and send him abroad. He went and did his A levels at Westminster, went through with 3 A's, is now a neurosurgeon working out of Guy's Hospital in London. But again, spotted early, pursued, parents saw the light, and the boy is gifted and talented. Now, sometimes a school has to arrange a special routine and a program for such children, which otherwise, to keep the boy in the system is a sin. And he needs to be given, or she needs to be given, a little more freedom, especially in residential schools where everything is cut and dried and timetabled and routine. These children might need extra classes. They may need more time in the library. They need more time on the computer. They may need more time to study at night. They may be taken off sports and other things. It's also amazing how the other children in the school accept and understand that these children are different. and they do not grudge them these special facilities. Children are sometimes quicker than teachers to accept that these special kids should not be confined within a normal routine. Now, if a school decides that the child stays on, it's because these children also bring laurels to the school, to the institution, and therefore we must do our best for these children. Often these children need special schools because they benefit from an open-ended task, which permits them to show what they know on a topic or issue. Such tasks include complex problem-solving activities or challenges or open-ended assignments. As Shabayu said, sometimes it stalls the teacher who's actually teaching for the average. If he's going to be pulled by the smart kid or the talented child, what's going to happen to the normal average kid? Schools also must not get in the way if a student wants to leave and find his bearings somewhere else. We had a very special cricketer in school who went off to a school called Millfield, which is a top school abroad, where most of their swimmers swim for the country in England. And he was a cricketer, went on to play for Somerset and the combined universities, played for Oxford. But we lost him. And the school that he went to on an exchange for 2 months grabbed him. Now, initially, we were a little upset that they were not sticking to the rules. But, I, as a housemaster, had to accept that this boy was so talented that this was a better option for him. And the stories go on and on. These are amazing people. They need special nurturing. Like the queen bee, they have to be fed on royal honey, royal jelly. And I look forward to hearing the thoughts and views of teachers who are in the job. I enjoyed my rapport with some of these special kids. I was in awe of them. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much, Shabayu. Thank you for listening very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We knew we could count on more than 4 decades of your experience to have a lot of exposure to some extraordinary people. But some of the stories that you said and the insights that you gave, sir, are really, really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to call upon our next speaker, Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. Achin is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, a fellow of the ICAI, and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session. The notions about giftedness vary considerably across cultures, and the diversity in conceptions lead to varying understandings and interpretations of what actually constitutes extraordinary talent or giftedness. Now, there's no doubt that most conceptions have always traditionally focused on academic achievements and, of course, a superior level of intellectual ability measured by maybe things like IQ tests, which adhere to a very conservative view on giftedness. However, what we have seen, especially maybe past 2 or 3 decades, there's been a gradual shift and a much more multidimensional view have been embraced by the society at large about what actually constitutes giftedness. and broader abilities such as leadership, creativity, arts, I think these have also been recognized. And so the approach now by and large is far more with regard to talent development and talent differentiation. Again, as I was telling you, that it varies across culture, also because I think there's a strong correlation with regard to how giftedness has been conceptualized depending on the needs of the society, what the society actually needs. For example, we always see a difference between Eastern and Western philosophies. And it has always existed on giftedness, even today. Of course, through global intermingling of research and ideas, slowly the gap is narrowing. There's no doubt about it. But traditionally, always Eastern notions of giftedness accord greater importance, far greater importance to environmental influences, and believe more in potentialities and capabilities in children. Whereas in Western conceptions place greater emphasis on the individual, his or her cognitive or motivational functioning, and view creativity as a process within a person. Until I think about a century ago, there was a very strong relationship between spirituality and giftedness. And I think no one understands this better than us, considering the depth of our culture, the depth of our spirituality, the legacy that we all proudly inherit. Very strong relationship, which holds a very strong moral connotation, granting more importance to giftedness being of collective benefit to society as against individual excellence. So I was reading about this in a very famous American educational psychologist, Joseph Renzulli, who postulates that high potential in any field of activity stems from three components. So there are three things that needs to come together. And I think Barrett sir very rightly mentioned, he touched upon these areas. First and foremost, of course, above average general intellectual capabilities. So which can be measured by any traditional test of intelligence. Second is engagement, the practice that sir was referring to, the kind of hard work which is involved. And also I think engagement brings in factors like enthusiasm, interest, perseverance, eagerness, openness to criticism. And third, very important, creativity, which includes fluency, flexibility, originality of thought, openness to new experiences, and of course, a very childlike, curious outlook towards things, appetite for taking risks. Professionals who have always worked with gifted students, and there are so many senior educators here in this forum, and I think sir very rightly mentioned that each one of you have your own stories to share, real life experiences to share. But professionals who work with gifted students will always recognize that creativity is a very salient issue and a very important component of giftedness. While some further stress that creativity is actually the highest form of giftedness. Thus, it is common to see that attempts to nurture creative thinking is often a major part of gifted educational programs. Now, again, there's an element of domain-specific performance or labeling, or labeling an individual. When we label someone who is extraordinarily talented, so whether creative, talented, how do we label? For example, students excelling in art and literature are very often termed as creative. Those in sports are called talented. In academics, especially in science, exceptional students are exceptional, means truly exceptional, are almost always termed as genius. Now, this is how it has always been, with very little understanding of why different levels are given to gifted person. These are stereotypes which have always continued. But then what is gifted and talented? So for example, I personally believe that every child has potential, maybe in different areas. It is all about identifying and nurturing the same. So when we try to look at this term in detail, in depth, and try to pause for a moment and see what we mean by gifted. In 2003, I was going through a very nice article published in 2003, a part of a research paper, of course, by another very noted educationist, Francois Gyan, who said that gifted students are those whose potential is distinctly above average in one or more of the following domains of human ability. So he narrowed it down, and a few fields he mentioned. One of them was intellectual, creative, social, and physical. So talented students are those whose skills are distinctly above average in one or more of human performance. So he made 4 broad categories and focused on the word potential. He believes in the power of environmental factors, that being natively smart enough. For example, a child needs support and guidance to achieve his or her gifted potential. There's no doubt about it. Now, again, so the other question is, how do you know that a child is gifted? I think very often parents and teachers, educators also have a huge role to play here. Identify gifted children through their own observation and instinct. And instinct is something that only comes with experience, which is something that educators do have after having handled so many children. Often we know that there's something extra about a child. There are questions, insights. Now again, various literature around the world has been published in this regard. For example, in 1988, 6 types of gifted students. So there was a particular article by Brett and Newhart on this particular topic. And they came out with a grid, identification grid, which can be useful to place like a very useful conversation starter between parents and school with regard to identifying a gifted children. Now, again, I think the downside is that if we fail to identify them early, as Shubhayu mentioned in his opening remarks and Burrett also touched upon it, actually there's a huge risk. We risk damage to the individual who very often, if not always, may be turned off by conventional and rigid education in a fixed pattern. At times, there have been several instances when they have opted out, sitting well below the attainment radar, almost disinterested, not being motivated enough. So we risk damage to society by not encouraging the students to fly. And because unless until we use their exceptional abilities, neither are they achieving their potential, nor is the society benefited. And again, very often giftedness may not be appropriately reflected only through exam grades. That may be only one way of looking at it. But if you look at things from a more holistic perspective, there are various other factors as well. Now, sadly, we often ignore the needs of students with this kind of exceptional potential. And there are various factors associated with it. Of course, resource may be one factor, maybe in terms of money, time, bandwidth, etc. But it is important that they be identified early and nurtured accordingly. Now, again, identification itself, IQ scores may not be the only way to identify. Of course, there are established models, etc. I was going through yesterday. Gagné came out with a model, very specific model, like mildly gifted, moderately gifted, highly gifted. There are specific bands with regard to IQ scores, starting from, I think, around 115 for mildly gifted and going all the way to profoundly gifted, which is something around 180 plus. So various specific groups. And various work has happened in this particular area. If you look at the kind of literature that has been published, and I'm sure esteemed educators in this forum, many of you are aware. If not, I will encourage you to look at it. Starting from 1905, I was seeing when Binet had introduced the idea of mental age, very distinct from a person's actual, physical age or calendar age, mental age, and created the first structured intelligence test, which was first created in 1905. 1978, when Renzulli developed a three-ring conception of giftedness, interaction between above general intelligence, high level of task commitment, and high levels of creativity. Then, of course, Gardner, whom you already discussed about, developed the theory of multiple intelligences like linguistic, musical, logical, etc. And so on and so forth. So various work has happened in this particular area. So practically, it might be difficult even for parents. I think parents to really bring up someone who has this kind of potential, because on one hand, they have a huge responsibility on their shoulders as well to ensure that they do justice to the children's talent. Now, and there's a thin line of difference, very thin line of difference between supporting and pushing. So I think because the way we look at it, for instance, basically, say nurturing is, when we nurture, then nurturing is child-centered, while pushing is adult-centered. When we nurture, we follow the child's lead, but when we push, we want the child to follow our lead, to do what we want him or her to do. So I think the drive, the urge has to come from the child. He has to generally enjoy what he or she is doing. Of course, earlier parents have a bigger role, but going forward, I'm sure the child, if is genuinely interested, will pick it up. So there's an excellent book on this particular topic called Changing the Game. Very, very nice book, which actually deals with this particular aspect. Changing the Game, written by John Sullivan, who offers some very good suggestions. For example, first and foremost, work with your child to set goals. So be it academic goals, be it goals with regard to sports, etc. Second, of course, helping the child. And of course, this is equally applicable to educators as well, who very often work so closely with their students, especially in a boarding school setup, etc. Helping children to make sure that their actions are consistent with those goals. One is setting up goals. Second is to ensure that actions are consistent with those goals. And third, as they get older, to give them more control, so they're more independent, actually in charge of this. And fourth, of course, watching for pitfalls, ensuring that they achieve what they want to achieve. Because very often, it's a challenge, especially for high achievers. Considering the fact that many of them are perfectionists, they're very demanding. And when I say demanding, they expect too much from themselves. At times, it's very emotionally very stressful for them to come to terms with failure. Any kind of pitfalls, but which practically can always happen. Failure is a part of life. So I think for parents, it's very important to be able to emotionally handhold them through those phases. So that is another thing, because children also need to know that their failures and success, independent of that, a parent will always love them and support them. Parental support and acceptance is unconditional, which I think is going to act as the very big calming influence in their lives. So that is one thing. The other is I think in today's age, technology also has a huge role to play. Because today, if a child is genuinely talented, exceptionally gifted, irrespective of geographic barriers, economic barriers, access barriers, technology has a huge role to play. The moment that word goes out, it spreads. There are many people, and I'm sure there are many people with the best of intentions who would like to help, contribute to the process. So I think it's all about reaching out. I was reading about this, a very famous theory called ZPD theory, a zone of proximal development. It has been this particular term has been coined by a Russian psychologist, Lev Vygotsky. Now, who is very famous for his work into the development of cognitive skills in children. And the way he has defined it is that ZPD is that this particular term ZPD is the space between a child's current and a potential level of development, like where you are and where you aspire to go, where you aspire to reach. Now, this particular gap, in order to bridge this gap, very often, all physical support that a child has access to, especially for this kind of children, may be inadequate, and they may need more support. So I think this is where technology has a huge role to play, to act as a bridge and ensure that this kind of children, they actually achieve their potential. So these are a few things that I wanted to share. I thank all of you for giving me a very patient hearing. It is really wonderful listening to Barrett, sir. And we are very experienced and senior panel here today, senior educators. And I really look forward to hear from them, their take and their real life experiences on this particular topic. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we do have a fantastic panel lined up for you. But before we go on to the panel, a little bit about us here at Notebook. We at Notebook are an EdTech platform. We create short, crisp videos pertaining to every topic of the school curriculum. This means that for the CBSE curriculum, right from classes 1 through to class 12, whichever subject, whichever topic you're teaching, you would always find a notebook video that you can use inside your classroom to give a visual introduction to the topic, whether you're teaching online or offline. The students also have access to the same videos on their personal devices, smartphones, laptops, whatever they can get their hands on. They can watch these videos over and over at home until they get a crystal clear understanding of the concept, and also the videos serve to remind them of what you had taught in class the day the particular video was played. I'm now going to play a short mashup of some notebook videos. After that, we shall go over to the panel discussion.
नमस्ते बच्चों, नोटबुक में आपका स्वागत है। इस नए वीडियो को आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करते हुए हमें बेहद खुशी हो रही है। हमारा उद्देश्य है परंपरागत शिक्षा को आधुनिक तरीके से पेश करना, ताकि हमारी ये नई पीढ़ी या आप सभी कहीं भी कभी भी इसे आसानी से पढ़ सकें।
3 sandwiches between you. How do you share? Definitely one for you and one for your friend. Then what about that extra? Half of that extra yummy sandwich is further divided between you and your friend.
Let us take a closer look at the format and the parts of a formal letter. First, we begin with the sender's address on the top left-hand corner of the page. The second step is to write the date on which the letter is being written. This is right under the address. Remember to leave a line before the date. Our next step is to write the receiver's name or designation and his or her address.
विराम चिन्ह के बिना किसी भी भाषा के वाक्य अपना पूर्ण अर्थ स्पष्ट नहीं कर पाएंगे। इनका प्रयोग वाक्य में विराम लेने या रुकने के लिए किया जाता है। यदि किसी वाक्य को धारा प्रवाह बिना रुके हम बोलें तो किसी को कुछ समझ नहीं आएगा। विराम चिन्ह की परिभाषा। भाषा के लिखित रूप में विराम देने के लिए हम जिन चिन्हों या संकेतों का प्रयोग करते हैं उन्हें विराम चिन्ह कहा जाता है।
You will learn that we need 3 things to get a shadow: a light source, an opaque object, and an opaque surface on which the shadow will be formed.
A pinhole camera is a very simple camera that you can make yourself. Take a shoebox and cover it with black paper. Take a sharp point and make a tiny hole at the center of the shorter side of the box. Ask an adult to cut a 2-inch by 2-inch square from the opposite shorter end of the box.
Samudragupta defeated the 12 rulers of Dakshinapatha, but then allowed them to rule Dakshinapatha under his supervision. The rulers in the neighboring states of his kingdom, like Assam, coastal Bengal, Nepal, and some Sanghas in the northwest, brought tribute for Samudragupta.
The poet uses the afternoon as a metaphor to express their feelings towards one another. Then, out of nowhere, the speaker's brother thumped him or her on the back and admitted his fault. The speaker now, however, says that he was in the right. When the speaker's brother did not accept his share of the blame, The speaker accused him of being in the wrong.
नोटबुक में आप सभी का पुनः स्वागत है।
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a short mashup of some notebook videos. It is now my privilege to introduce the wonderful panel that we have with us today. We are privileged to have with us Mrs. Ruma Mukherjee, who holds an MA and a B.Ed. She holds a postgraduate diploma in school leadership and management. She is currently working as the principal in Spark School, Hooghly, West Bengal. She has over 22 years of experience in the field of education and has achieved the Best Teachers Award from KIIT Bhubaneswar in the year 2018. Her life motto is to stay simple and live life to the fullest. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here today. We're privileged to have you on the platform. We also have with us Ms. Anshu Tomar, who's been associated with Vidya Gyan School, Sitapur for the last 7 years as PGT English and Academic Coordinator. She is a proactive and astute professional with a lucrative experience of more than 15 years, having taught in schools with cultural and linguistic diversity. She loves sharing her travel stories and experiences with her students, beautifully blended into the context of learning. She is a teacher born with itchy feet, and nature binds her with the supreme power. She's particularly braving inclement weather to be here with us today. Ma'am, thank you so much for that. And we hope your connectivity holds while we are having the conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. We also have with us Ms. Paromita, who has completed her schooling from Bhattacharya in Kolkata and a graduation from the prestigious Presidency College and post-graduation from Calcutta University. It was always her ambition to be a teacher, and being in this profession, she has realized that one has to be a constant learner in order to grow. She joined Apeejay School as a faculty member in 1996 and has since been the academic head, vice principal, to finally take up the charge of principal. She's a passionate educator, always open to new challenges. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here today. I shall stop my share now and switch on the camera. I would request the other panelists to please do the same. Ruma ma'am, Paromita ma'am, and Anshu ma'am, thank you so much for being here. If you could please switch on your cameras and unmute yourselves. Paromita ma'am, very good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Ma'am, I'll come to you with the first question. Let's say you are in class and across your school, once you identify that a student has extraordinary talents, what are the typical next steps?
Well, though Mr. Buffett was of the opinion that, we should have different schools for them, but most of the time in a given situation, we cannot have such special schools. So a child, when we come across such a child in school, first thing is that the joy in us to see them flourish. So we take it up as a challenge and we try to nurture. And obviously the parent will have to be taken into consideration. We try to provide challenges through the syllabus that we create, through the complex curriculum development, and also we keep flexibility, because suppose a child is extremely talented and is a sports person. Now there will be times when the child won't be able to attend schools. So we have to keep that flexibility and arrange for special classes or arrange for a special examination set for him. Similarly, when it comes to any academic person, we have seen that, they have higher cognitive skill. And as a result, they tend to get bored. And they always have a tendency to mix with children of higher classes because they can match their cognitive level with those children who are at a higher level. So we try and have, in our school, what we have done over the years is that we have 3 different sets of worksheets where we call them tortoise, hare, and eagle. So for this kind of, especially in the junior section where it is, most of the times it is the children in the level of 6 years who showcase this kind of things. We try to bring out their talent, bring out their academic capabilities through this kind of thing, where they are given, when they're finished with the work and are getting bored, and as Philip mentioned that, they are disruptive and they can be disturbing the class, they are handed over that worksheet so that they can work on them and be engaged.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Ms. Mukherjee, if I may come to you next, ma'am. Ma'am, in your school, when you have let's say somebody showing exceptional talent as a singer or a dancer or any performing arts, are there special coaching or is there any special training that you give to these kids?
Yes, sir. What we do is that my school is located in a rural area, sir. So the parents, my children are the first generation English medium learners, what I found. But I found that one of the student, I would like to share the story of one student. All of a sudden, all the teachers quietly, we noticed that the student was excel in sports activities, but her sports activities was quite different in that rural background. Normally, being a good athlete or a good runner or a high jumper like that, the child was interested in kickboxing, and which we found that it was very difficult to provide or to feed her thirst, because the knowledge that she wanted to know, she was very eager that where she can go and excel and get that training and everything. So what we had done, that we had a meeting with the parents as well, as because the parents were not aware about the fact that the child was finding something interesting in kickboxing. So that girl was so excellent in that we had a meeting and the counselor and everything, and she joined that association of that kickboxing, and finally she has won the gold medal in the national championship. Recently, she has won the gold medal. And at the same time, she is such a gifted children. What we found, as Philip sir said and Achin sir said, that nurturing. Now, what we found that her sincerity and her efforts was not only excel in the sports, sir. What we found that in her education also, she was very much sincere. Now, when we understood that she is trying to put her effort in that field also, automatically we tried to provide her that support over there so that she can have that leadership also. She can take that leadership. So this was the thing, sir.
Wonderful, ma'am. Our heartiest congratulations to your ward. And
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I sincerely hope that this sets off a trend in your locality, that
Yes,
more and more people, especially girls, take up mixed martial arts.
Yes, sir. And this has given a chance for the other students also to think it in a different manner, because as we believe that every child is gifted and every child has the potential in the some or the other field, if they can come up with their things, they can come up.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Anshu, ma'am, hi, good evening. Can we trust your connection to hold, if I may ask you a question, ma'am? Anshu, ma'am, are you there? We know that ma'am was facing quite bad weather all through the second half of the day, and it's amazing for her to join despite that. Ma'am, we cannot hear anything that you're saying. Ma'am, are you there? Ma'am, unfortunately, we can't hear what you're saying. So I guess we'll come back to you in case your connection improves. But thank you so much for being here nevertheless. Paromita, ma'am, if I may come back to you. We were talking about the point of parents. Now, Philip sir spoke about a case where the parents were not very happy with the extraordinary talent that their child had. On the other side of the spectrum are parents who tend to go ballistic, and they would then expect absolutely special VIP treatment from the school for their children. How do you deal with such situations, parents at both ends of the spectrum?
First of all, the acceptance is definitely a difficulty in many parents. As mentioned previously by the fellow speakers, that sometimes just give me a minute, the battery is running. So as mentioned by my fellow speakers, that sometimes parents are in a denial. They don't think it is important, and especially in the Indian scenario, academics is most important. They have to be either a doctor or an engineer or a CA, something like that. Though over a period of time, things have changed, and now we have a wide spectrum of the vocation. So in a situation like this, I think, first of all, the most important thing is the trust and confidence the parents should have, and there should be a constant communication. The key word is communication here. The school should have, and school should engage with the both as the teachers as well as counselors and special educators, they have to play a very, very pivotal role in getting the confidence of the parents. And obviously the parents need to be counseled a lot. Sometimes, as mentioned by Achin, that, it is their desire, trust for achievement, which is kind of put onto the child. Most of them are adolescents. They do not want to be, dictated like that. They want to have their own choices, make their own choices. And that freedom needs to be given to them. And also, they're individuals. So as individual student, their desires, their needs could be different. So we try to provide such, emotional and as well as curriculum support to the students, wherein these children confide most in the special educators, and they are their confidence, and the special educators and the counselors that we have. And as a result, over a period of time, we have seen that very recently we came across a child who got admitted at a time when he should have been in class 8. I'm sorry, in class 3, but he took admission in class 1 for whatever situation at that point of time. But now, having reached his age of, wherein he should be in class 8 and now he's in class 6, he feels that, the parents have not done much. And he constantly complains that, over last 5 years, I've been telling you and you have not done much. So we had a very engaging meeting with the parent as well as my counselors and special educators. And we have decided to give him a chance wherein he will be definitely clearing his class 6, and then we will give him a chance to clear class 7 as well, because he is being able to achieve that, right? And if possible, parents obviously are not saying that we have to do it, but we are giving him a chance wherein if the child clears, obviously we have shortened the curriculum. We plan to do a part of class 7 with him now, and then go on when he goes up to class 8, if he is able to manage, then we will again provide extra classes, extra help, and teachers are all willing to do that, right? And wherein I'm sure this child who is having an emotional, extremely stressful and emotional time, facing that, the students with whom, the peer group with whom he is actually in class, he should not be, and he belongs to some other peer group. So he wants to be there. So we have, as a result, we have shown that flexibility, and we are trying to provide that kind of support.
Wonderful, ma'am. A very curious case where
yes,
the child is hitting adolescence way before his classmates.
Yes, and he's emotional. And, first time when he came to know that we are going to do this for him, he was the first time he created a video for himself. He came up with explanation of the circuit in physics, and parents are extremely happy, and we are very, very positive. We hope, we will be able to take him forward.
Wonderful, ma'am. Lovely story.
Yeah.
Ruma, ma'am, if I may come to you, ma'am, we are hearing about parents and how you deal with them. And you just told me that your school is not in an urban area. There, ma'am, how do you manage the expectations of parents? You told us the story of one student who's great at sports, but let's say the parents expect the students to come and follow a very conventional career path, and the student clearly has a talent for something completely different. How do you convince them?
Sir, actually, here I would like to share one story which is completely related with the academics part. Sir, actually, one of our students at a very early stage only, we had come to know that the child was someone gifted child, and that the child was really excelling in academics, because the thirst, the hunger that he had in the class, that is, he was not at all satisfied with what the teacher was teaching, because he wanted more knowledge, that is to change the information to knowledge. And he wanted that, sir. So what we found that when the other children were playing in the tiffin time or the recess time, now that child was quite busy doing mathematics and everything. So we found that he was certainly different from all the others. Now he was doing, at the age when he was in class 7, he was doing practicing the sums which was there in the class 9 syllabus. So he was busy engrossed in fulfilling or completing those syllabuses rather than this. So what we did when we had a talk with the parent that your child is gifted, all of a sudden, here the story goes different. Automatically, the parents became very much possessive. Once the father came to know that my child is gifted, he became very proud on that. And he said that I want to give my child the best. Best means in the world's best, the best books in the world in different subjects. Now, what he constantly wanted to put that pressure on that child. Now, what we found that, sir, gradually the child, though he scored a very good marks and he excelled in mathematics in his first board exam, at present, the child is now in class 12. What happened after class 11? Due to this over-possessiveness and over-pressurizing the student, the child became completely unsocial. The child was not able to mix up with his friends, with his peer group. And he found that whatever the teachers were teaching in my class or wherever it was, I am not satisfied with that. Gradually, the child started retreating back, sir. And we found that he completely stopped his studies, which was quite alarming to us. We constantly wanted to counsel the parents that bring out the child from that studies. And we had a talk with my special educator, my counselors were there. We all held a meeting and we said that you have that potential, you have that capability. Once you know that you are gifted, you can create your own things. And our teachers started supporting that child. And gradually now he has started picking up that momentum. At present, he has started picking up that momentum. But we found that once in the rural area, once the parent has come to know that my child is gifted and a special child, that means my child needs some special attention and everything. Though our teachers were providing, as Paromita ma'am was saying, that we also have that different type of worksheets, which we give it for the higher average students so that their thirst and their knowledge can go to that level also, and they can satisfy that, and automatically they can pursue in their level of teaching in the higher studies also. But what we found that due to this parents' over possessiveness, this child started retreating back, and gradually now the child has started gaining momentum with the help of our teachers and special educators and counselors, sir.
Wonderful, ma'am. As you know, this is the 151st episode. If I had to count the number of times where we have heard about students facing problems because parents trying to live vicariously through them, it's going to run into thousands. And I'm so glad that the whole education system is now gearing to change that mindset amongst parents. If the one thing that is good has come out of the pandemic is now parents understand the schooling system a lot better. I think teachers enjoy a little more faith from the parents than they earlier did.
Yes, sir. This online mode of teaching has helped the parents to understand that the teachers are also the frontline warriors, how they are coming up with their classes and their creativity, their innovativeness. And this is a completely new mode of hybrid mode of learning. The parents are gaining some faith on the teachers, sir.
Right, ma'am. Anshu ma'am will try once again, just in case your connectivity is good enough. My question is, ma'am, you being the academic coordinator, how do you account for lesson planning or any other planning around the school studies to account for students who are perhaps more gifted in other areas than academics? Anshu ma'am, if you're there, we would try to connect with you once. Anshu ma'am, are you there? Looks like the connection has not improved at her end. We are so sorry about that. Paromita ma'am, let me come back to you. Earlier on, it was said that every teacher has tons of stories about very, very special children that they have come across in your life. You had a long experience in the field of education. If I had to ask you to recount one or two of those special students and how their journeys were and how the teachers made a difference.
We have children, wherein these hidden talents obviously comes up while in class, and sometimes it is the quiz, sometimes it is the music, which comes up as a special ability. So we have had students, especially there is one particular child right now in class 10 and one in class 9 who are excellent quizzers, right? And they award, especially with the child in class 9, he is someone with special needs. So there were several issues of anger management, especially when he was in the junior section. And from therein to what he is today is a completely different journey. And he's one of the most responsible child. and winning us laurels. I mean, last Intact quiz, he has been part of the Intact quiz for many years now. And always, we are now into the national finals, waiting for him to participate. So there are stories like this definitely in our schools. Now, while we were discussing so much on this, talent and flexibility and all of that, one thing I always felt is that talent in whichever field has to be, to hone it, to nurture it. What comes as a very important part is discipline. I always give my children this example that, Sachin Tendulkar at one frame and Vinod Kambli at the other frame. They were equally talented, equally gifted, if not more, when it comes to Vinod Kambli. But it was the dedication, it was the discipline and being at it, which actually made the difference. So such stories are definitely there. And we are very, very proud of many of our students. There is a particular child who has hearing impairment, right? Right now, initially she had difficulty in understanding also, but over the years, the special educators and also all the teachers in our school helped her a lot, and she's a confident girl now, married and settled in US, working there. So such stories are there, many of them.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing those with us. Ruma, ma'am, you have shared a couple of them. If you would like to share some more, we would love to hear them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, actually, one more story is there. A child who is very good, excellent in drawing part. And we found that the painting recently, when due to this pandemic, when the class shifted from the classroom to this online mode of teaching, and we found suddenly the child started developing this habit, this drawing, the passion for that drawing, painting, and the child started gradually sharing those in the WhatsApp groups or in the status or in the Facebook. And all of a sudden, those paintings were attracted by some of the famous painters in Kolkata region only. And that child now got associated with them. And the child has started painting with like charcoal painting and everything. And the child found a new dimension. The child was thinking to go in a traditional way, as in the rural area, the parents have a thought that my child needs to become a doctor or an engineer or the traditional mode of going into the higher education. But this child, since they developed a passion, now this child wants to go for this in the fine arts or in the commercial art. And he is trying from our teachers to gain all that knowledge, all that information he is wanting. And he is so passionate, sir, that every or the other time, whenever anything is there, any program, any cultural program, or the school needs something, he is the first one to raise his hand up. And he has taken a great leadership in that. And he has built up a group among his peer group also. And he has started those things. And he has started his own YouTube channel also to teach that drawing or that painting and how he is doing, how he is gradually proceeding with it, with the pencil, what type of pencils and everything. And we have shown that also eagerness, and we have motivated that child. Now that motivation, that thing automatically helped that children to think in a different manner. So automatically these only are the gifted, because every child has that gift. Only the thing is that nurturing or watering the plant so that it can grows into a tree, sir. That is the main thing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing that with us.
Thank you, sir.
Unfortunately, this is where I will have to draw this conversation to a close, but we could have gone on. As everybody knows, all of you over these years have had so many such wonderful exposures that we could listen to those stories all evening long. It will now be my job to do the thank yous. Most importantly, first of all, Anshu ma'am, thank you so much for braving the inclement weather to be here with us. Unfortunately, we could not hear you speak, but it is just this kind of support that keeps us going here at Together for Education. Barrett sir, thank you so much for that wonderful start, like every session that you've been on. So your experience, your fantastic exposure with all the students. And there was something very interesting that you said that has stuck with me. That is, if the student is getting special treatment from the school by virtue of having a special talent, the other students actually acknowledge that and accept that, which is such a beautiful thing. that they're not feeling competitive about it. And if this spirit prevails in a school, then nothing like it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, sir. Paromita, thank you so much for sharing about the various ways in which you help these special children. I love the fact that when I asked you for stories about talented students, both of those had instances where students were not only talented, but were overcoming other odds to kind of hone their talents further. Thank you so much for sharing.
If you would give me 1 minute, I just recalled one more thing.
Please.
There is a child in our school who is now studying in St. Xavier's. He was very, very good in basketball. And it so happened he would go for special classes, special coaching at SAI, and he has represented at the national level, right? And during his time when he was in school, he had a number of students got enthused and they started playing it. And we had about 3-4 of them playing at the state level, then at the national level. So there also we took our, we obviously give them time to practice, and teachers obviously allowed them to come in late because at SAI they go in the morning. They could not report to school before 9. So that was allowed. Special classes for them. And obviously they would miss out on tests, miss out on units that would be taken again. So they made us very, very proud. There was a point of time when 4 of them were playing at the state level and national level. So that was a very interesting part. And in our school, we don't have a proper ground. So it is the space where we have our basketball area. There only they would play. And everyone became so enthused. It became the sports club was the most happening club when we would have our club activities as a result.
Wonderful, ma'am.
And thank you for allowing me to be part of this wonderful session, being in such august gathering, and and speak about a topic which is perhaps not dealt so frequently, not reflected upon so frequently.
Ma'am, firstly, the privilege is entirely ours. And secondly, ma'am, after 151 episodes, there are very few topics in school education that we have managed not to touch. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Ruma, ma'am, once again, thank you so much for being here. I think the fact that you work in a school that is not in an urban area and yet have such fantastic systems to take care of talented children, the working closely with parents, giving them the confidence to kind of go ahead and put their daughter into perhaps mixed martial arts or kickboxing is a fantastic move. It is your schools, it is the efforts that all of you are putting in that will give us our next crop of actors, athletes, superstars in whatever field that they choose to work in. To the audience, thank you so much for being here with us yet again. It's always been such a terrible inspiration to have all of you here listening to the discussions that we have. We look forward to having you again soon. Until then, please take care, stay safe, and goodbye.
Thank you, Shubayu. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you.